Coach Adam Williams on episode 4 of Coach's Conversations. Coach Williams is the assistant coach for the men's basketball team at Stetson University. How you doing, Coach?
I'm great, man. How are you today?
Good, man. How's Florida treating you?
You know, you wake up here every day, and a bad day is about 75. So it's great. If you're going to be in a situation where you can't get out, and it's a deal where we've never seen this before.
Right.
Florida is one of the better places to have that because you go outside and you can go to a local park or walk a trail or whatever you're going to do. And most days it's pretty nice to do that.
That's awesome, man. My sister, my family lives in Sarasota, and my sister drove up here last week to stay with me for a little while. And when she left there, they had just opened the beaches up. And when she got out of the car in West Virginia, it was 32 degrees and raining. So
yeah, there's things I miss about home with my family and friends, and just how nice the people are at home.
Right.
The weather is not one. I don't miss it at all, not a bit.
Oh, middle of May, man, and we were looking at 32 degrees, man. So yeah, that's West Virginia weather for you. But hey, man, just want to get into it here. Really thankful that you'd come and join me, and looking forward to talking to you. Just for you guys that don't know, Coach Adam Williams is a native of St. Albans, West Virginia, and graduate of St. Albans High School. Went on to play college basketball at University of Kentucky, and also transferred to Marshall after that. And has had multiple stops in his coaching career as he's climbed the ladder: Marshall, West Virginia Tech, Central Florida, Longwood. Was the head coach at Salem University, which by the way, I just graduated with my master's from Salem.
Congrats.
Finished my work up last week, so excited about that. But and then now you're at Stetson University. So Coach, just talk to us a little bit about your journey there and really, you know, how you got started in college basketball coaching.
Yeah, I think it all starts with my dad, who you know well, and most people in St. Albans know fairly well. That kind of sets the table. And growing up in that household, I'm going to say it was kind of a one-dimensional household. You know, it was obviously academics were very important at home, but from an athletic standpoint, it was basketball all the time. And it was, you know, me playing or dad coaching or whatever it may be. But to see him coach every day and grow up in that house, that kind of, as I said, set the table for me. Right. And then I went on, and, you know, as a young person, you start getting to a point going from a boy to a young man, and, you know, hearing your parents tell you, you have to figure out what you want to do. What do you want to do in life? Yeah. Well, first off, most kids at 18, 19, 20, 21, all the way up to 23 or 4 probably don't know what they want to do. Right. And that's okay. Yeah. That's part of it. Right. But I was blessed and fortunate because I saw early on, wait a minute, you can stay in this sport and coach and make a living for your family. Right. And this can be the only thing that I do the rest of my life. Right. Wow, that's awesome. Yeah. So when I figured that out, that was probably late high school. I thought to myself, I want to play as long as I can, and then after that, I want to coach. Right. And so what really, really like took it up a notch and made me realize this is what I want to do is when I got to Kentucky, and I saw all the resources that those guys had to work with, and of course, Kentucky is another animal. Right. But you know, it is a well-oiled machine at the collegiate level. Mm-hmm. And so I saw that, and just the passion those guys had, and the hard work they put in, and every day going in and just busting their butts and getting guys better. Right. And, you know, we were the guys, and I just fell in love with it. And then, you know, obviously I ended up being lucky to be around who we'll talk about in this call, but they helped me get to the point where I'm at. Right.
That's awesome, Coach. I don't think a lot of people understand, just the general fan, they do not understand what it takes to get to the level that you've gotten to, you know, as an assistant coach at the D1 level. You know, talk to us a little bit about just the time and and to be honest with you, time that you probably weren't compensated for very much, you know, and how does that process work? And how did that apply to you? And what did you do throughout this time when you first started until now?
Yeah, it's a big misconception, first off, of what coaches really do.
Right.
And, you know, none of my friends think this now. They probably did when I was playing in college, and they probably thought this about my college coaches. But some of the perception is college coaches come in, and they're there about an hour before practice, and they have practice. And after practice, they go home, and then they come to the game, and that's about it. They
Right.
get to wear their suit on the sideline. And the reality is the coaching on the floor, X's and O's aspect of college coaching is probably 10 to 15% of the job.
Right.
You know, and then the rest is a lot of other things. Now, getting to this point of where I am, it does take a lot of time, a lot of commitment, and it's no different than what you're doing at St. Albans.
Right.
You know, I've just decided early in my career, I want to try to be a college coach.
Right.
And to try to be a college coach, it's just a different path. Not always,
right.
But usually it starts out as a volunteer or a graduate assistant making very little money. Right. Sometimes housing's provided. Sometimes, like when I was at UCF, there's a great example. We had some really good graduate assistants at UCF. Yeah. And they were taking out ridiculous amount of loan money to go to school, like $35,000, $40,000 to go to grad school at the University of Central Florida. Right. We weren't paying them because we did not have paid GAs at the time. Right. So these guys are taking college classes, $35,000, $40,000 in student loans, having to find a way to pay for housing, somewhere to live, pay for food, and then they're still spending 8 to 10 hours a day in the office. Right. And where's the compensation? Yeah. And then you're doing all this with no guarantee it's going to pay off at the end of the day. It's blind faith.
Yep.
That's what it is.
Yeah.
So you go into it, you have a goal, you hope you're going to reach that goal, but there's no guarantee.
Right.
And so that's tough at first as a young person because young people want things to be guaranteed to them.
Right.
They want to know if I do X, I'm going to get Y.
Right.
And the reality is you can do X and never get to Y.
Right.
And that's a lot of things in life and no different in coaching.
Right. Yeah. You had mentioned setting goals. You know, I had just had this conversation with my sister, actually. You know, everybody that gets to a certain age, you know, they're thinking about what they want to do 5 years from now, 10 years from now. What are my goals as a professional, you know? And I had challenged her like, hey, you need to write some goals down, you know, and then develop a plan of action to try to fulfill those. Right. So talk about the importance of just doing that. You know, we talk to our high school kids about it all the time, but you know, you got to have a vision and you got to have goals set, you know, and a plan of action to reach those goals. And obviously you've done that to get to the point where you're at.
Yeah, I think it's big to have two different types of goals. They're very basic. It's for me. Other people may have different categories or however they do it. I have my short-term and long-term.
Right.
Okay. And, you know, my short-term goals are what do I want to do by the end of this week? What do I want to do end of this month, this upcoming season? My long-term goals would be, you know, the things that you talk about. What do I want to do in 4 years, 5 years, 10 years? And all I know for sure is your goals have to align with each other. So, you know, I have to have short-term goals that once I accomplish those, they're going to bridge to my long-term goals.
Right.
And a lot of times as you cross off those short-term goals, then you're working towards those long-term goals. And there's no guarantee you're going to reach that long-term goal, but it is guaranteed if you don't accomplish the short-term goals, you have no chance to get to the long-term goals.
Right.
So that's kind of the setup that I have is let's win today. Let's win tomorrow. Let's have a plan to win next week. And then if I continue to improve and get better each day and you know, check the boxes, man, I got this to do today. I got to do a great job at it. Do this today. Don't worry about a year from now.
Right.
And then when you get to a year from now and you've done all those things, a year from now can put you in a pretty good spot.
Right. Yeah, that's awesome, Coach. So you're at Stetson with Coach Donnie Jones, and obviously you've worked with Coach Jones and been with Coach Jones since you were in college. Talk a little bit about just the staff that you work with. I mean, you guys have a phenomenal staff. Just from a college basketball fan, I mean, I know what you guys have there with that staff, and it's unreal. So talk to us a little bit about what it's like working for those guys, with Coach Jones.
Well, first off, you want to work for somebody that when you go to work every day, number one, it's fun to go to work every day and you're looking towards going into the office.
Right.
And it's not like that on every staff. And that's just the cruel reality. but Coach Jones and Coach Sir and Coach Mitchell, those three guys that are assistants, and then we have two other guys, Coach Guzman and Coach Wingreen on the staff. Mm-hmm. You want to go to the office every day because they're good people.
Right.
So every guy that you walk into the office with, you enjoy seeing.
Right.
Their experience, especially Coach Jones and Coach Sir, speaks for itself. DJ won 2 national championships at Florida. This is his 3rd time being a Division I head coach. He was my coach at Marshall. And how I quantify how good of a person he is to other people that don't really know him, I tell them this one thing. And if you know anything about college basketball and coaching and how hard it is to get a coaching job, this puts everything into perspective about who he is. I was an average player for him at Marshall. Okay, I wasn't a 15-point scorer. I wasn't an all-conference player. I played hard for him. I bought into what he wanted us to do, and I knew he could count on me. All right, that's where I was. But I was not a star by any means. He's hired me 3 different times.
Yeah.
And so I think that says a lot about who he is as a man, because he's taken care of guys that have given to him.
Right.
And so phenomenal person, great human being, right. Better friend and father than a coach, and that says a lot for a guy who's won 2 national championships.
Right.
Okay, then you got Brendan Sir, who is a freaking legend. I mean, he's 2 world championships with the bad boys and the Pistons.
Right.
And, he has an Olympic gold medal with the Dream Team. He runs coaching clinics with Kevin Eastman with the Clippers. I mean, Coach Sir's probably forgot more than all of us will ever know, and he's so humble and he's so easy to talk to. And he's another guy, you walk into that office, man, he's got so many stories about Isaiah Thomas or Dennis Rodman or Michael Jordan. He's just a storyteller. And it's not boring stories. They're awesome. Stuff that you and I we grew up watching these teams play.
Right.
And he was living that at the time.
Yeah.
So those 2 guys at the top with their knowledge, experience, personalities, who they are as men, I mean, that's who you want to be as a coach.
Right.
And so every day you're going into the office and you're getting a coaching clinic almost.
Right.
And what makes that easy for a guy like myself and then Jonathan Mitchell, who's another young assistant, how easy is it to get a young man on the phone and talk him into, hey, these are the 2 top assistant head coach on our team. Let me link you up with these guys.
Yeah.
And you start reading off that resume. It's pretty impressive.
Absolutely.
But Coach Mitchell is the last assistant. He had an okay career. He played professionally for 9 years overseas in about 8 different countries and was all Big East at Rutgers. Yeah. He won a national championship at Florida, was Mr. Basketball in New York City. So, he was an accomplished player. He's a little younger. He's 32, and this is his 2nd year in coaching. But he's another one. Tells you about Donnie.
Right.
2nd year in coaching, full-time assistant at Stetson because of a relationship.
Wow.
So that just speaks, I think, volumes of who Donnie is and what he stands for. Family. It's real when he says family.
Right. That's great, Coach. I had listened to one of his clinics online during this COVID-19 pandemic, and one of the things that he talked about with his staff was how he, it's important to have clearly defined roles, and talk to us a little bit about your role with the staff there and what you do on a day-to-day basis.
My biggest role, number 1 role, is to take care of the guys that we currently have, which is, I think every college coach feels that way. Yeah. Our guys are divided up into academic groups. Each assistant has 3 or 4 guys that they're responsible to make sure guys are on top of things. They're getting the help they need. And we do a really, really good job, I feel like, of making our guys understand academically. Kids are always scared to come to their parents when they're young. A lot of times they're scared that their coaches will find out what's going on. We want to break down that barrier, and we want it to be a relationship where, hey, man, if you failed a test or you failed this or you didn't do what, it's okay. Let's just talk about it. That way you can get help. So that's our number 1 thing, is to make sure guys are doing well, as men, academically, off the court, make sure they have no issues. They know they have somebody to talk to.
Right. And
that's all of us.
Yeah.
Specifically with me, I guess my number 1 role on staff from a basketball standpoint is I'm the recruiting coordinator. Okay. And that really means, I'm kind of on the forefront of organizing recruiting. Myself, Coach Mitchell, Coach Sir, we communicate daily about, who'd you see, where are they located. If I see a kid maybe from New York that I've seen play that is good, I put Coach Mitchell on him. He's a guy on our staff, has ties in New York, relationships in New York. And if he's on a guy, from a different area, he's going to let me know. So I have that organized. And then I take maybe out of 100 recruits, there might be 10 to 12 that we're keyed in on that I'm taking to Coach Jones every day.
Right.
And Coach, these are the kids. This is all about them. This is his mom. This is his dad. This is his AAU coach.
Right.
My job is to kind of filter through the information and find out the stuff Coach Jones needs to know.
Right.
Because as the head coach, I might have 2 or 3 responsibilities. He has 1,000.
Right.
And all the responsibilities he has, I can't take him everything and just throw it to him.
Right.
I have to pare it down for him. And that's why you have to trust the people you hire.
Right.
He has to trust that I know what he wants and I can do that for him. So recruiting coordinator is big. The other thing I focus on from an X and O standpoint on our staff here is defense. Yeah. And Coach Jones and Coach Sir are obviously phenomenal offensive coaches, which puts me in a tough spot because every day I walk in and practice, I got to find a way to stop their offenses, which are always really good. But that's kind of been what I've spearheaded this past year and going into next year is the defensive side of the ball. Right. We've played man, we've played zone, we'll press. We've mixed it up, but those are my main responsibilities on staff. And then, I think it's all about relationships, Brian. And that it's probably more so even in high school when you're dealing with younger kids. Yeah. But our guys just want to know we care about them and we're there for them. And I think if they know that, you're going to really help them grow and get a lot out of them.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely, man. Even at the high school level, I mean, especially this generation, if there's not some sort of trusting relationship, the kids aren't going to play hard for you. You're not going to buy into what you're selling. They're not going to do the things full tilt the way that you want them to, and so that, again, that's on us coaches. And I think you hit the nail on the head there with the relationships. And obviously, going back to your high school days, man, you've been able to formulate all kinds of great relationships with people that you still have to this day. For those of you that don't know, he played at St. Albans High School, which is the school that I've been blessed to be a head coach at right now. And that's where you're from, and, a phenomenal community, man. And you know all about it. But, for those of you that don't know, and Coach Williams touched on it just a little bit ago, but Adam's the son of a West Virginia legend. And he's high school level and college level. And he's been really good to a lot of people. And his whole life has been about serving people. And obviously, even to this day, he spends his life honoring people through the Hall of Fame and his museum and stuff. And I just think it's phenomenal, man. What was it like playing for your dad at St. Albans High School, and especially your senior year? You guys made that great run. Went to a state tournament. Just talk to us a little bit about that, and just some great memories that you've had at St. Albans and just playing for your dad.
Yeah, well, St. Albans, you're lucky and you're blessed, and St. Albans is lucky and blessed to have you, because it's been a long time, Brian, since somebody's really poured into the kids in the community at the same time. So thank you for doing that. And, your kids had a great year this year, man. I was so disappointed they didn't go to the state tournament. Yeah. I was joking around with Coach Jones, and I had told him after, I said, if this ended up happening and the kids win, I was going to make up something and say I was going to go recruit a player so I could, fly up there and see them play. But I just think that, I look back, and my fondest memories playing basketball, and I've played at every level except professionally, were my high school team, man. And you're playing with your best friends. Mm-hmm. Those are guys – I grew up with those guys, the Adam Fletchers, the Joe Harveys, the Mike Chandlers, all those guys, the Brett Riggins. I grew up with them. They were my friends from the time you were a young kid. Right. And so to be able to go to work every day and you're working on your game, you're trying to get better, and then you're hanging out after, and whether it's, playing video games at my house or getting in Fletcher's pool and hot tub at night after a game, I mean, those are real relationships. Right. So if you can have success with people that you love and care about before you get into the trenches, that's awesome.
Absolutely.
And so that senior year, I had a odd career in the instance. My first 2 years, we played at the University of Charleston.
Yeah.
We didn't have a home gym. They were redoing the high school there, which is it's not really new anymore, but it's nice.
Right.
And they were redoing the high school, and so we were going to school in the trailer parks. It was Trailer Park High was the chant when we go on the road, because we had all the trailer parks. Yeah. Or the trailers for the high school. And so we were at Charleston for the 2 years, and then my senior year, they finally finished the school. Mm-hmm. And the community was phenomenal. We sold out, it felt like, every game.
Right.
And it was just like, that was it. St. Albans it's a small town. It's close knit. There's not a lot to do in that area.
Yeah.
People really rallied behind us.
Yeah.
And so it was special to have a good year that year because I knew it was my dad's last year.
Right.
And I knew that, he had some bad beats in that state tournament.
Mm-hmm.
He lost twice in the championship by 1 point to his friends both times.
Right.
So he'd had some difficulties with some good teams. And I think it was 98 when Brett Nelson was there. They had a bad whistle against Martinsburg and lost in the quarterfinals. And Brett had like 29 points in 22 minutes, and they lost by a couple of points. But just his last shot, man, my last year of high school, my dad's last shot. And, one of my biggest regrets is we couldn't get it done. Yeah. But it was just great memories, just the whole deal. I loved every minute of it.
Absolutely, man. Yeah, and I think that's what we try to impress upon our kids now. High school kids, they don't understand that some of the times that they're living right now is the best that they'll ever have, and as far as just from a standpoint of the purity of the game of basketball and just the friendships and, like you said, that the hanging out in the hot tub or going to tutors or, you name it. So I think it's important to, as men our age now, to reflect back and be thankful for those times, that we had back then. Obviously you've progressed throughout your career, but, you're a family man now. You're married, you have 2 kids. You tweeted something at the beginning of this pandemic that really struck me right. And it was just talking about the importance, obviously, of developing as a professional, but the most important thing, especially during this time, is investing in your family. And that really struck with me. Talk about that, man. How do you balance that and just the importance that you've learned, obviously as a family man now and balancing the game of basketball and a husband and a father?
Well, we're fortunate now with this pandemic to be able to do that. Yeah. And there's 2 sides to everything. You can, feel sorry for ourselves and, we can't be around our guys and, we can't do this and we can't do that. Well, first off, I'm back on the Division I level. I've been all over. As a Division II guy, you don't have your guys in the summer anyway. Right. Okay. So I feel like a lot of Division I coaches right now are like looking at their hands, like, what do I do? Oh my gosh, I can't be around my guys every day. Yeah. Well, that's life, man. I mean, I was never around my guys at that Division II level. I'm sure a lot of Division II coaches are like, oh, come on. They probably think it's funny a little bit. Yeah. But this has been such a blessing because your family's always number one.
Absolutely.
And, unless you have a genuine, real 9-to-5 job, which let's be quite honest, there's not a lot of those out there anymore. Okay. You could have a 9-to-5 job. It's not really a 9-to-5 job.
Right.
But unless you have a real 9-to-5 job, I mean, you're spending a lot of time at work, man. Doctors, lawyers, teachers grading papers at night and on the weekends, coaches. I mean, I'm gone recruiting. I'm here doing this, doing that. So it's not a 40-hour work week. It's an 80-hour work week. And that's being generous because I might be watching a movie with my wife, but I'm texting 3 recruits.
Right.
So you're really there and you're present. Yeah. So what I'm trying to say is that was life before the pandemic.
Right.
Well, now I'm able to live a life where every day I wake up, I see my 2 kids. Before I got on this call with you, I had my son at the park playing. Yeah. I mean, those are just things that you can't do in everyday life as a coach, as a teacher, as a doctor, as a lawyer. There's a lot of things. Right. So this is the best time to pour into your family as much as you can because, I mean, I'm 34 years old. If I coach till I'm 65 or 70, I may never get this opportunity again. This may be it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's great. Yeah, Coach. And I think that that feeds into a quality that Coach Jones talked about in one of his clinics that I watched about living intentionally. He had talked about building culture and some of the things he was talking about, valuing people, living intentionally, exceeding expectations, growing daily, having a positive attitude, equipping people and being an example. One of the things that really hit with me was the living intentionally. Obviously you can apply that to basketball and coaching, but also your family. How does that tangibly, how does that play out for you, with your life and your as a coach and as a husband and a father?
Yeah, well, I think living intentionally, for me, it can have a lot of different meanings to different people. But for me, I'm waking up every day with a plan, man. Yeah. I'm waking up every single day, and I'm doing something with my son today. I'm gonna take him to the park like I did earlier today. I'm gonna watch a movie with my daughter.
Right.
I'm gonna call 7 kids today. I'm making a point to do these things.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people talk about things, but in this world, action is all that matters.
Right.
What you do speaks so loudly.
Right.
What you say is great. You got to have action to follow that.
Yeah.
So, I just try to always make sure that I have a plan going into the day and it's not focused on one thing. It's
right.
being well-rounded, being a dad, being a husband, being a coach, touching our guys, making sure I'm reaching out to them. It's a different time for them too. So having a plan every day when you wake up, and then some days, Brian, it might be as simple as, tomorrow I'm going to relax. I need to recharge. And that's okay, because if you're living intentionally and you're making sure that this is part of my plan, I'm not doing this because I didn't think about it. Right. I'm doing it because I need a day. And that's okay.
Yeah. Right. That's great. Coach, last time I watched you, again, we've talked about this before, but, Coach Jones is a great clinician. I think you're pretty good yourself. I've watched it a few times. I think the first time I saw you was probably the last West Virginia High School Basketball Coaches Association. I think they had it up at Charleston Catholic, and you did a ball handling. I might have been a skill development session. I think you did when you were at Tech. I think it was. But last time I saw you was at the Beckley campus, West Virginia Tech, and you talked about I think ball screen motion and some of the stuff you were doing at Salem at the time. Obviously, you said you're kind of on the defensive side of the ball a little bit, but talk about some of y'all's foundational pieces of your offense, at Stetson and what you guys are trying to accomplish there.
Yeah, we're really into the concept of, and it comes as no surprise with, Coach Sir having 35 plus years experience in the NBA. Right. And then Coach Jones, his best friend is Billy Donovan, who's with the Thunder right now. Coach spent a year in the NBA with the Clippers. And so he's got an NBA background as well. Yeah. A lot of our offense that we're doing right now is kind of the positionless basketball concept. Yeah. And what we mean by that is, obviously, you need to have a guy that's a point guard type guy that can get out there and run the show and get guys into position. But we really want all 5 guys. Doesn't always happen with your center, but we want most of the times at least 4 guys to be able to pass, dribble, and shoot.
Yeah.
And kind of away from the traditional positions of, one, you're bringing it up and you're passing and you're getting in the offense and now our point guard needs to be able to make shots.
Right.
Our 4-man needs to be able to pick and pop and make shots or put it on the deck and make a play. Our 2 and 3 got to be able to go in there and rebound.
Right.
So we're still into a lot of ball screen things, but we're in ball screen actions that have a lot to do with spacing, have a lot to do with timing. And our 4-man, it's very important, has to have a skill set. And that's probably the most important spot. Right. Because if he can't stretch the floor and keep the defense honest, they clog in there in that paint. Yeah. It's tough to make plays how we want to be able to make plays.
Right.
So it's spread ball screen. What we do is just a different way. It's a different way of a spread ball screen. And then, we have a ton of quick hitters if we don't get anything that we like. And those are all NBA based out of what Coach Sir sees. I mean, he runs a coaching U clinic where he gives away a lot of his stuff and he keeps some of it up his sleeve. And that's a lot of the stuff we run.
Yeah, that's what a phenomenal experience, man, again, to be able to be with Coach Sir and obviously Coach Jones. And, you talked about spacing. We actually, for the first time, since I've been at St. Albans, we were able to have a 4-man that was able to shoot a little bit. Mm-hmm. And it's phenomenal what that can do for the spacing of our offense, and our points per game. We weren't a great shooting team. We haven't been since I've been here at St. Albans, but our points per game went up 7 or 8 points from the previous year, strictly because our spacing was better, because the 4-man had to be guarded on the perimeter, and so.
I agree. And one of the things I believe strongly in, Brian, and I love this quote, I think it's a Bobby Knight quote. I'm not 100% sure, but it's a great quote wherever it's from. And the quote is, at the end of the season, you're in your last game, would you rather have 2 good plays or 2 good players?
Right.
And all that means is, plays are great, but you better have some guys that can go out there and make some plays.
Right.
And so that kind of transitions a little bit into one of my beliefs, and really Coach Jones's as well. All these coaches, they're looking for a magic play. Mm-hmm. There is no magic play. Right. There's not. So the really most underappreciated part of coaching is skill development.
Yeah.
And if coaches would spend more time with skill development with their kids, especially in high school,
Yeah.
because the biggest difference between me and you is I can pick who we coach.
Right.
You can't.
Right.
You get the guys that are living in your community.
Yeah.
So if you can't develop their skill set,
right.
if they're not already talented, you're in trouble.
Yeah.
So what we really do in practice at Stetson, and I did this at Salem, if we're in practice for 2 hours, we're spending at least 45 minutes on skill development.
Yeah.
Passing, shooting, dribbling. All those plays are great, but none of them work if you get an open shot and can't make it.
Right. Yeah. And man, to be honest with you, we could take that all the way back to youth league. You know, I mean, we've got youth league coaches now that they get an hour block of time to practice, and 45 minutes they spend on their 2-3 zone set or their 2-3 zone, or, you know what I mean? And there's very little sometimes skill development. That's one of my encouragements to youth league coaches and all the way up. I mean, obviously at the college level, that's the philosophy, is spend time investing in the skill and development of your players, you know, and how important.
As a youth league, I think youth leagues should really adopt the principles of two things: man-to-man defense, can't play zone, and motion offense, can't run quick hitters or anything like that.
Right.
Because that's teaching kids how to play at the heart of the game.
Right.
Because in zone, you have to still play man-to-man.
Yeah.
You still have to guard the ball.
Right.
You know, any plays, you still have to read. If you have a set play, you still have to read the defense the defense if it breaks off.
Right.
And if you're running motion offense, all it is read and react and spacing. And if you're playing man-to-man defense, you're learning how to sit down in a stance, slide your feet. So it'd be nice if youth leagues will do that, but I could probably talk for an hour about that conversation, and then a shot clock in high school, and I would take up our whole time. So.
Coach, before we close here, I just wanted to ask you one last question here. Give us one piece of leadership advice that you've learned from your collective experiences as a player and a coach. I mean, that going back to whether it be playing for your dad, watching your dad, all the way through to Coach Donnie Jones and all your experiences. What's one piece of advice that you would give college coaches, high school coaches, middle school coaches, you know, leadership advice, you know, with their team, their guys?
It's so cliche, Brian, but it's true. And I think it's true because it's cliche because it's so true. Kids, young adults, young men, they have to know there's a true, genuine care outside of basketball.
Yeah.
They have to. They have to know you're taking an interest in how they're doing academically, not because of their eligibility, but because you want them to succeed as a person.
Right.
They have to know that you care about mom and dad at home, or just mom at home, or just aunt at home, or just uncle at home.
Right.
They have to know that you care about the relationship with their girlfriend.
Yeah.
If they don't know that you care about them, then they're just not giving you everything they got.
Right.
And so the one thing I've learned, every great coach that I've had has made me feel like this guy would go to bat for me.
Right.
He loves me. He cares about me. I was so fortunate. You know, obviously my dad loves me. Okay. That's my father. He was my first great coach.
Yeah.
Tubby Smith is, I think, a phenomenal coach at High Point now, who I played for at Kentucky. Tubby is one of the kindest, most caring, gentle men in the world. Phenomenal.
Right.
And then I go to Marshall. Coach Jerza was only there for 1 year. I still have a great relationship with Coach Jerza. We talk probably at least once every 2 or 3 weeks. Phenomenal guy. And then Donnie was my last coach. And just all those guys I have deep personal relationships with as an adult.
Right.
And so I just knew they cared about me. And it's a lot easier to lay it on the line. So I think any leadership starts with people have to know at the end of the day, you care what happens to them.
Right.
And you're not telling them something because you want it for you. You want it for them. And if you can get them to believe that, I mean, everything else is cake, man. That's just the reality of the situation.
Yeah. Coach, that's phenomenal stuff, man. And again, I really appreciate you coming on with me, and really enjoyed talking to you. I know you're probably, like I said, very thankful for your family time. I know you're probably itching to get back with your guys too, so it's probably a little catch-22. But I appreciate you coming on and your time. Really appreciate it.
No, thanks for having me, man. And I wish you all the luck and success there. Hopefully that you can kind of keep going what you got. I know you had a great senior group this year, and those kids, I'm proud of them, and I wish I could be there to see you guys play a little bit more, but maybe I'll make one of those excuses to get up that way, and we'll just have to tell Coach Jones I'm recruiting 3 kids from St. Albans.
There you go, man. Hey, we'd love to have you, and next year we'll have an alumni night. We'll try to do one every year. So, you know, if you can recruit a couple St. Albans kids, man, it'd be great. But we understand where you're at. So, again, man, I really appreciate it. And we'll talk to you soon.
All right, Coach. Take care.
All right.